This is Classic FM.
Why did you decide to match the Beethoven Concerto with music by Kreisler?
A couple of reasons. First of all, I think obviously the two cadences by Kreisler were the first link which I did between Beethoven and Kreisler. Then Kreisler did a lot in the beginning of the 20th century to re-establish the Beethoven Concerto into the big halls. And he also, as far as I know, did the first recording disc of the Beethoven Concerto. And there are a couple of really wonderful links. Another would be that Kreisler really is kind of my personal hero in the way he always stayed true to a classical performer. On the other hand, explored the shorter pieces, writing stuff, arranging contemporary popular pieces. That really helped him to reach out to an audience normal classical violinists wouldn't have gotten. So I think there are a couple of similarities which I really like the combination.
And he had, a really varied career as well, didn't he? I mean, he left music out of his life for a period of time when he was getting flack from critics and all the rest of it, and decided, I'm going to do something. I'm going to train to be a doctor.
As funny as it is, some of the greatest did not always receive good reviews. Take Paganini, for instance. It's sometimes a struggle, especially when you do something which is maybe not entirely traditional. But in the end, we all, being a serious musician, we all work for our audiences, or we should. And whatever you can come up with in order to extend your audience, in order to bring classical music to a different public, I think there is no shame in that. And if you do it even well, I think it's quite a good thing.
What sort of violinist do you think he was? Away from the composing and arranging.
You mean Kreisler?
Yeah, because when you read things about him, he apparently had a great warmth of playing and.
Well, there's lots of recordings still in existence from Kreisler, which of course helps to understand what a modern violinist he actually was for his time, and. Not everything, of course, is anymore in the standard of how we would perform these days, but he had a beautiful sound, a wonderful charm and sweetness to it. And I think it also shows in the way he wrote music and he arranged. And he saw the violin really as, an extension of the voice. And the way he phrased, the way he wrote certain melodies. And there was always a sense of romanticism still in his compositions, and I really appreciate the way he really connected with a new audience.
How do you go about then deciding which of Kreisler's pieces to pair with the concerto?
Well, there's a lot to choose from, that's true. Obviously I went with quite the compositions which he also preferred. If you look at the programs which he performed, those were literally his hits. And the ones which the audience loved, and I think he enjoyed performing them quite well, quite a lot as well. And it was quite easy in the end. He wrote numerous pieces, but those are, I think, his best works.
And is it right that for a time, some of the works that he wrote himself that he was performing on stage, and he was sort of saying, this is a little bit of Corelli or it's a little bit of Paganini, and they were actually his own works?
Yeah. I think it is a great way also to showcase that he really was a very established composer. You can only do that if you have a very good sense of style. And he really managed to rightfully fool sometimes the critics.
And then we have one of the pieces on Legacy, we have Rhapsody on a Theme of Paganini, Rachmaninoff's work, and then Kreisler goes, do you know what, that's going to work really well on the violin.
Yes.
And he was the first to think that.
Yeah, he was, and there's unfortunately only a piano violin arrangement by Kreisler, which is beautifully done, yes. Obviously, knowing the Paganini Rhapsody by Rachmaninoff, I felt it would add a little bit more to interact with the symphony orchestra with this piece.
And why do you think it works well on the violin?
Well, I think it's a beautiful melody. The thing is, why do you arrange something for an instrument? Because it simply works. There are certain things which I would never put on the violin because it just wouldn't add anything to it. Very important for me as an instrumentalist, it has to make sense. It has to bring something to the piece which hasn't been done before. And I think the violin is, on the one hand, a very technical instrument, very virtuosic, but on the other hand, you have the possibilities of, doing the most beautiful lyricisms on this instrument.
This is Classic FM.